but we're going to continue from the last part where we left off, and we're going to go ahead and set up the project structure and have a clean MVVM architecture with Jetpack Compose. So to see what the structure and the architecture is going to look like, let's have a look first at our dependencies. So in the previous part, we had these dependencies in our app build.gradle file, and to continue from where we left off, we need to add a few more dependencies. So let's go ahead and first add the material extended dependency to our material section of the dependencies build.gradle file. So that can go right where the material library is imported. And we also can note that here we have the version of Compose, and to make this cleaner, we can use something called a BOM. So the BOM is this line here, which gives us the bill of materials and tells us which is the latest version of Compose that's available. So as of this recording, it's the 2022 October 10th release of the BOM. And when we hit sync, we can see that it's going to try to resolve the versions of the libraries that are mentioned in this BOM. And once it has done that, we can then remove the Compose version from our import section and hit sync. So the same goes for any Compose library that we may have, such as these ones here, where we mentioned the Compose version, but which are now not needed once we have the BOM imported. So we may go ahead and remove all the mentions of Compose version. And just as a double check, we may go to the Compose version in here and note that this is 1.3.0, but in our build.gradle, if we were to hit colon and hit the light bulb, it would try to download. So let's try this here, extended, and here it shows us that 1.3.1 is the latest version. So we could do that, or we could take the 1.3.1 out because we have the BOM here, and that would take care of importing the latest version that is mentioned in the BOM. So let's hit sync, and since we don't need the Compose version in here, we could take it out, but for now we can just set it to 1.3.1, and it can be taken out later. So let's hit sync now. And if we were to run our project right now, we could see that our app should open. Let's check the progress of the build here. So the splash screen still shows up as the last time, and we are inside our app now. So next step we can do is we can start implementing the main activity that's in our app. So let's go to main activity, and instead of just having this content here, we could add the home screen into our app. So for the home screen, we need a drawable which would serve as the background for our app. So we could say new image asset, and we can import the image, or we could even copy it manually. So let's copy the file from our assets folder to our folder, which is source. That should be in our unicorn app. Source main, source app, res, source, res, main, res, drawable. So now it should appear here when we sync with the file system. So that's our background for what we need, and let's go ahead and add this background to our screen. This is not refreshing right now, so let me close that, and then I'll go ahead and open the main. So we need a folder called the screens folder here under UI. So we need a package called screens, and under screen we can create a Kotlin class called home screen, and this would be a composable. So let's go ahead and we can use the live complete functionality to complete our composable. We also need a nav controller inside our composable. So let's call that nav controller, and inside our home screen we can just have a what we have under the main activity right now, with the only difference being that we need, instead of a box or under the box, we can add a image with a painter resource, and let's put this on a new line, and the ID would be the drawable ID, and the drawable ID in this case is background portrait PG. So that should be the drawable ID, and we can import the .r with a alt enter, which imports this here. We need to import image. So let's alt enter import the compose version of the image class. So we have, that's actually imported the wrong one. So let's do this again. Alt enter, and media should be the right one. Under image, actually it should be, let's take another look here. Alt enter, compose foundation is the right one, and under image painter resource we need a few more attributes, so we can add content description for accessibility, content scale, and we can set that to content scale dot fill bounds. We can set our modifier to match parent size, and under this we can have a column under the lambda for image. Actually, under the image we can have a column and add some attributes to the column, such as modifier, set it to fill max size, set the vertical arrangement on the column to arrangement dot center, set the horizontal alignment to alignment dot center horizontally, and under the lambda for column scope we can add the text with the attributes modifier. We can make the modifier for text to be clickable, so that we can add a click handler in here. We leave this as a to-do for ourselves, and under the other we can say text equals navigate to next screen. We can add a color to our text field, make it white, and then let's import all the classes. So alt enter to import column, alt enter to import arrangement, alt enter to import the color. So in this case we're going to use compose color, and here we can set it to white, and in the actually that's the other way to do this is to check the compose. So this actually imported the companion color, whereas we want graphics.color. So let's do that again. Let's import the dependency for nav controller. So that should then stop complaining. Now we have color, which is the graphics color. So we need this import resolved, and we can do that with color dot white, and here we can set the font size to material theme dot typography dot title medium dot font size, and we can set the font weight to font weight dot bold. So now that it has all the imports and we have our composable, we can go ahead and wrap our home screen or our My App screen with our home screen composable. So to do that, we can just add home screen here, and to have the nav controller, we need a nav controller variable. So let's make it a late init var, which means we can initialize it later and make it a nav controller of type nav controller, which means when we need it in our app set content, we can set nav controller here using our remember nav controller function. So in our nav controller, to get our remember nav controller function, we do need the right import. So let's see if we are missing an import for remember nav controller, and that would be this import. So we're not missing the import for nav controller, but we are missing the function. So if we go ahead and import navigation controller function, we should be good. The reason it's complaining here is we do need the right import in our build.gradle. So let's go ahead and check our imports. This would be the app build.gradle and not the project root build.gradle. So in our app build.gradle, we can check our navigation compose or our compose navigation imports. So let's take a look at our imports. So we have our compose UI dependencies here. We have our material dependencies here. We have our splash screen dependencies here. Then we need to find our navigation dependencies. So let's go ahead and create a section for navigation dependencies. So that's the navigation runtime. And then we can add our navigation dependency for Android X dot navigation, and 2.5.3, which is the composed navigation version. And that should then make it so that once the sync is completed, our error should resolve. So here we can now call the function remember nav controller, and we get the nav controller. And now when we have our home screen, we can check the layout using a build.refresh on there. And we can also check if our home screen preview is set up. So to have the home screen preview, we can essentially have a composable home screen preview, and we can call home screen with the nav controller using remember nav controller with no arguments, and we can annotate it with preview, and that should then give us the preview. So here it's saying add preview by annotating. We have the annotation, but we don't have the annotation import, which means we need to import it. And now that it's importing, we should be able to see the home screen. So that's the home screen, and that's our text. So if we zoom in to our text, we can see the home screen, and we can say welcome to Unicorn Home, which should now refresh here. And that's our home screen. So let's run it on the device. And we can wait for the build to complete. And that's the splash screen. And that's the home screen. So that's it for this part. And in the next part, we're going to look at some of the architectural decisions and also some of the networking decisions. Thanks for watching. See you in the next part.